Good evening. Welcome to tonight's LPA meeting. First thing on the agenda is roll call, please.
Cheryl Culberson.
Present.
Patrick Foley.
Present.
Tony Hammond.
Here.
Susan Raffaello.
Here.
James Ryan.
Here.
Vice Chair Lori Lalonde.
Here.
And Chair Deb Gillis.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Bart, would you lead us in pledge? Thank you. Is there any additions and deletions to the agenda this evening? Got awfully quiet. I guess not. I'm asking anybody. Okay, public comment. Public comment is strictly for items that are not on our agenda. Do I have any general public comment?
We have Van Cadenhead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Van Cadenhead from Alamorado, and I just wanted to comment on something that we're going to talk about later at the council meeting tomorrow night, or probably the night after that, the second night for land use. And the word is fronting. And we've gone through all kinds of gyrations about what fronting means and how it can be interpreted and this, that, and the other thing. And to me, that's one of the reasons that we're not getting anything done, or we're getting things done in a very slow fashion. Because to me, it's a very obvious word, and it means one thing. Is when you come over Whale Harbor, on your left is Wahoo's. That's fronting on US 1. You go down a little bit further, there's the church. That's fronting on US 1. Fronting on US 1 was made one of the prerequisites for affordable housing, with good reason. And just because someone is a lawyer or a land use lawyer or has a special interest in changing the definition of fronting to fit his property or her property should not be the reason for this body to get tangled up for hours of discussion, and the council to get tangled up for hours of discussion. Fronting it's obvious. It does not mean adjoining. It does not mean adjourning, because apparently I read the agenda for Thursday, and they didn't spell adjoining right. They spelled it adjourning. But I really hope that we can get through this and that you will support the true meaning of fronting, which is the one part, the front part of the property fronts along US 1. That's what the decision was made to open up affordable housing for that reason, and I hope you will stick to that reason and not let it be misconstrued in any other way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Van. I think we had that on our agenda last month. So, any other public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
No one with their hand up.
All right, thank you. Next is the consent agenda. It's the minutes from our last meeting.
There's one correction I have to the minutes. The comments I made concerning, I think it's sitting on page 3, the property down at whatever we're calling the key south of Bud and Mary's is, it says Cheryl Culbertson spoke about the negative environmental impact of the bonefish. I spoke about the negative environmental and economic impact of the bonefish. The economic impact was the most important part of it.
It's just above item D.
Yeah. Top of the page on, what's
I
that?
don't
I
think
think
her
that's a 9
pages
down
are
there,
the
but I can't,
same. I don't think her pages are the same as ours, so.
my print's different.
It's just above number D, it's the one that says Cheryl. Yeah, it starts with Cheryl, there's two in a row.
How would you like me to read?
Just add negative environmental and economic impact, because they're equally important.
Okay, and I have one also. It's slightly above that, below where it says Patrick Foley. I'd like to add that I brought up the fact that the property was purchased in 1983, and at the county level, when they purchased it, it was a form of commercial fishing.
Are we on C? Mm-hmm. We're still on C?
Yes,
Okay,
it's like two above where you were.
okay.
Any other corrections? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve is modified.
And you want a second?
Second.
Tony will second.
Cheryl Culbertson,
Yes.
Tony Hammond,
Yes.
Patrick Foley, Susan Raffanello,
Yes.
James Ryan,
Yes.
Lori Lalonde,
Yes.
and Deb Gillis.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Moving on to the public hearings. The next two items are related. They're for the applicant Lynn Bell. Is there any objection from the applicant or any objection from here, hearing them together and voting separately?
No.
All right. Okay, hearing that, Roger?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roger Poe. Just want to make a reminder. So this is an ordinance of Islamorada, Village of Islands, Florida, considering the request of Lynn L. Bell to amend the village's future land use map from residential medium, RM, to mixed use, MU, for the subject property located on Upper Matacumbe Key with real estate number 00404730. 00000, as legally described herein, providing for the transmittal of this ordinance to the State Department of Commerce, and providing for an effective date upon the approval of this ordinance by the State Department of Commerce. An ordinance of Islamorada, Village of Islands, Florida, considering the request of Lynn L. Bell to amend the official zoning map from Settlers Residential, SR, to Highway Commercial, HC, for the subject property located on Upper Matacumbe Key with real estate number 00404730, 0000000, as legally described herein, providing for the transmittal of this ordinance to the State Department of Commerce, and providing for an effective date upon the approval of this ordinance by the State Department of Commerce.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Thank you. Good evening, LPA, Jennifer DeBobrian, Planning Director. I'm here this evening for the application for ordinance amendment for the future land use map and an ordinance amendment for the zoning map amendment from Lynn L. Bell for the property located at 81213 Overseas Highway. It is, the future land use map is currently zoned residential medium, and they are requesting a change to the mixed use future land use map. The zoning is currently settlers residential, and they are requesting to go to highway commercial zoning district. The property is comprised of 18,385 square feet. The properties to the south are designated FLUM. The FLUM designations are semi-public, semi-public service. The properties to the east are designated residential medium, and the properties to the west across Overseas Highway are designated residential high and mixed use. The character of the area is mixed use with residential uses, commercial uses, and institutional uses. The subject property has the existing settlers residential zoning district designation, and the adjacent property to the south is designated public, semi-public services. To the north, the adjacent property is designated settlers residential. The properties to the west across Overseas Highway are designated multifamily and tourist commercial, and to the east is settlers residential. And again, the character of the surrounding areas is mixed use with a collective of commercial uses, institutional uses, and single-family residences. The property is scarified. The property is not recognized as a habitat to any state or federal listed animal species and is not within the state's conservation recreation lands boundary or critical habitat area. Pursuant to the village's GIS data and records, the parcel was identified as scarified. Areas designated as mixed use on the future land use map recognize the prevalent and historical mixed use pattern of development within the village. The mixed use designation shall accommodate a mix of commercial and residential uses, which may be located in the same building, limited public and semi-public uses, recreational facilities, schools, marinas, tourist facilities, and supportive community facilities ancillary to permitted uses pursuant to the standards in the comprehensive plan and inland development regulations. The proposed FLUM amendment would alter the development potential of the subject property. There is a table in your packet that outlines specifics. The maximum residential density, if approved, the proposed FLUM would amendment would result in an increase to 2 market rate residential dwelling units or up to 6 deed restricted affordable residential dwelling units. And the maximum non-residential intensity, the FAR, the proposed mixed-use FLUM category non-residential intensity of 0.25 FAR and up to 0.35 FAR for areas inside the village activity center, working waterfronts, or through utilization of transfer of development rights. In your packet is the impact analysis on all public facilities, as well as the compatibility with the comprehensive plan and the state areas of critical concern. Based on that, for the FLUM, we recommend adoption, that it meets all the criteria. We recommend that the approval of the map, the FLUM amendment at this time. As far as the zoning amendment goes, pursuant to section 30-696, the purpose of the highway commercial zoning district is to accommodate the existing businesses along US 1 and to provide opportunities for new commercial retail shops and services that typically are auto-dependent and are used by people on a less than weekly basis, or to accommodate the building and services trade. Single-family or multifamily residential uses and educational uses are an option to commercial use. Though not proposed, any future development of the subject property would require site plan application approval. This will ensure that the subject property meets the standards of review of the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations, including but not limited to requirements for a minimum of open space, habitat preservation, concurrency management, and level of service standards for transportation, infrastructure, wastewater, stormwater, and other public services. Off-street parking and internal circulation, required setbacks, landscaping, dedicated conservation easements for existing habitats, on-site and off-site improvements, and design amenities required to achieve land use compatibility for surrounding uses and zoning districts. Procedures for zoning amendment. Pursuant to section 30-411D4B of the Code of Ordinances, the village council must find that the application is consistent with the comprehensive plan and that the applicant has complied with all procedural requirements of this section, and that the maintenance of the existing zoning on the property does not accomplish a legitimate public purpose. The village council shall make the determination on a finding of legitimate public purpose based on one or more of the following factors: demand for the proposed zoning district in the village in relation to the amount of land currently zoned and available to accommodate that demand. Pursuant to the village's GIS data and records, there are approximately 538 parcels that are designated highway commercial, which represents approximately 7.56% of the total 7,108 total parcels within Isla Mirada. Of the 538 parcels within the highway commercial zoning district, 85 are vacant, which equals approximately 15.79% of the total parcels. Number 2, compatibility of the site's physical, geological, hydrological, and other environmental features with the uses permitted in the proposed zoning designation. The site is currently scarified and vacant. The surrounding uses are compatible within the zoning district. Data errors, including errors in mapping, vegetative types, and natural features described in the comprehensive plan. There is no evidence that there are any errors in the village GIS data, records, or other resources. New issues. The village has accepted 300 additional affordable housing units. According to the Department of Commerce, there is an additional need for commercial space in conjunction with those units. 5, recognition and the need for additional detail of comprehensiveness. At this time, there is no additional need for additional detail because there is no proposed changes to the subject property. Number 6, compatibility of the proposed district with the property surrounding the site, requested rezoning, and any applicable neighborhood redevelopment plan. As previously indicated, the subject property currently has existing settlers residential zoning designation. The adjacent property to the south is public, semi-public services. The north is settlers residential. The west is multifamily and towards commercial, and the east is settlers residential. And again, the character of the surrounding area is mixed use with a collective of commercial uses, institutional public uses, and single-family residential uses. Based on the review of the application, staff has reviewed the zoning amendment request, and at this time, it determines it meets the criteria, and therefore staff recommends the approval of the zoning map amendment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any discussion or open it to the applicant? Applicant, okay. You have anything, Don?
For the record, I'm Don Horton. I'm the agent for the applicant. And no, not really. I'm just here to answer any questions. I want to thank staff for the work that they've put in this and the review of our application and finding us in compliance with the comp plan and recommending approval. But I'm here for any questions.
We can call you back up if you...
Thank you.
Right. Okay, to the table.
I am familiar with the property since I knew was on the phone with Eleanor McCandless a couple of times. It's sad to not see all the fruit trees that used to be there, but Irma made sure there would be no more fruit trees there. So it's just not going to happen. If you look at whatever it was, Sodom and Gomorrah got salted. Here's what happened to that property. So anyway, it makes sense because with everything else around it, it's inconsistent. It's not inconsistent, it's consistent with what's going on down in that section of town. Makes better use of it.
Patrick? Oh, sorry.
I tend to agree with that. I just had one question because I know that there's different rules with respect to settlers residential and replatting and whatnot. Have you confirmed that this site is a formal, that we're not looking at, because all we have is the property appraiser's website. Have you looked to see that this lot is in compliance with those rules with respect to it being actually itself a single platted lot? If it is actually a platted lot, I agree with Cheryl. We just didn't have that piece of information in our packet.
I did not specifically look at that, but I can do that prior to going to council and confirm that.
Is that not Stratton subdivision? It's part of Stratton subdivision? Okay.
I just looked at the property appraiser and it said subdivision of lots 3-4, which sometimes that means that the property appraiser has subdivided it, and sometimes it means it's an official subdivision. We didn't have that information, and settlers residential in particular has some restrictions to it.
It does. Well, that when you look at the deed to it, it's a meets and bounds legal description,
Which is the other
question about that. So it doesn't necessarily have a lot number. It is described with a meets and bounds.
Patrick?
I've looked at that piece before. I've known, of course, Woody and Eleanor my whole life, and I knew that area when Woody had his plants out there, and I've looked at it even before the village was incorporated. That was the way it was plotted. So I'm assuming that it's been that way all along, but we just need to double check. I'm sure before the village was incorporated, that's the way it was.
Jimmy?
I have no questions. I'm good.
Laurie, did you have anything else? Okay, I didn't have any questions either. It seems pretty straightforward, and if you if you take a step away from, step farther out, not just the immediate neighbors, it's so obvious that that's all commercial there. That, you know, if you keep it real tight, it might look like, well, gee, you're not matching anything. But if you take one step away from that, it's obvious. Any other questions? Okay, in that case, I need a motion for the flume change from, on the wrong tab, sorry.
I move to approve that we accept each one of
We
these.
haven't done public comment, thank you, Jim.
There is no public comment.
Officially say
sorry.
so.
Go ahead.
Dan, did you want? public
He
comment?
did not put in public comment, and there are no hands raised on Zoom.
Sorry for the
No,
interruption.
Go ahead. No, yeah, it slipped my mind. Tony, you want?
So I move to approve the application for the zoning map amendment change
We
for
have
the
to do the
flume.
flume
Do we have
first.
to do each one
We
individually?
have to do them individually.
Okay,
We have to do the flume
so
one first.
I guess we have to go with the flume first, correct?
Right.
So I move to approve the change in the flume for this particular piece of property as requested.
2 mixed use, right?
Yep.
Okay, I have a first.
Second.
I have a second. Roll call.
Tony Hammond,
Yes.
Cheryl Culberson,
Yes.
Patrick Foley, Susan Raffanello,
Yes.
James Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lori Lalonde,
Yes.
and Chair Deb Gillis.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, now I need a motion for the zoning change.
I move to approve the zoning map change, the amendment from settlers residential to highway commercial.
Okay, I have a first. I need a
I'll second.
Tony Hammond,
Yes.
Cheryl Culberson,
Yes.
Patrick Foley, Susan Raffanello,
Yes.
James Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lori Lalonde,
Yes.
and Chair Deb Gillis.
yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to item C. It's a buffer standards. You want to read the title for us?
An ordinance of Isla Mirada, Village of Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 30, Land Development Regulations, amending Article 5, Schedule of District Use and Development Standards, Division 6, Landscape Standards, Section 30-816, to specifically amend buffer yard standards relating to zoning district buffer yards, providing for penalties, providing for the repeal of all code provisions and ordinances inconsistent with this ordinance, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for transmittal of this ordinance to the Florida Department of Commerce, and providing for an effective date upon approval of this ordinance by the Florida Department of Commerce.
Daniel? Well,
Good evening, everyone. So for this one, back at the February council meeting, council directed staff to amend the code to remove the requirement of a residential property having to install a district boundary buffer when it abuts commercial property. So this item is at the council's direction. It's not staff generated. For the analysis, it's pretty straightforward. By making this amendment, it is going to reduce the amount of landscaping required on a residential property when it abuts a commercially zoned property. And in doing so, we just added a subsection to the current section 30-816, zoning district boundary buffer yards. So we added a subsection F, and that reads, where a district boundary where a district boundary runs along a residential and commercial property, the residential property shall not be required to install a district buffer yard. And that language kind of mirrors the rest of that, that section of code. So we are recommending approval of this amendment as it is per the direction of council.
Okay, and just as a clarification, although I think it comes without saying, is that the commercial does not relieve the buffer on the commercial side of that line.
It does not relieve the commercial property, correct?
Thank you. All right, any discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does it remove is it because it would be a double buffer that they're wanting to remove it because commercial is usually more? What about on the other side if they're adjoining a residential lot? Does it eliminate it entirely so they have a bigger footprint on which to build? Or is it just on that side that is a boundary line with a commercial property?
In most circumstances, both property, whatever property is being developed has to do a 20-foot wide buffer yard in most scenarios that this is covering. So the commercial would need 20 if they developed, and then if the residential on the same, adjacent to that same would also do a 20, so you'd end up with 40 total. But the council thought that was kind of a burden on the residential property that it would be a 20-foot buffer on their side. So it's not always a 20-foot, but it just eliminates the requirement when it abuts commercial that the residential has to.
I think part of your question was, if I understand
Yeah, if
this,
you have-
is you have a commercial, no, I'm sorry, if you have a residential next to a residential, is there a buffer?
Yes, and it varies by which residential zoning district it is.
Even with this amendment?
Yes.
If you had a commercial property vacant on which a residential is going to be built, residential, for that center property, is the buffer entirely eliminated? Or is it just eliminated where it is a buffer to the commercial?
Side.
Where the property, what does the language say? It covers it pretty well in the language. When the district boundary runs along a residential and commercial property. So it's only residential and commercial line,
Only
not
leaves it for
residential.
that boundary?
Right.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So the other three would still be in, or two, whichever way you want to do, still be
Susan,
in force.
I think one of the things that you're talking about, which is another subject we get into another time, is one of the subjects we need to address is FAR's floor area ratio for any lot, which is another subject entirely that we can go down that path. That's rabbit hole another day.
Right,
But
that's
yeah.
not today.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from here?
I ask this periodically, but I guess my question is there a story behind the story? In other words, why are we doing this?
I would ask that you go back and watch the video of the meeting.
Okay.
There was a property involved.
Okay.
I can think of one.
What's that?
I can think of one.
Okay.
Really, what it boiled down to is that there was a lot that was kind of long and skinny, and then requiring a buffer the council thought was an undue burden to the owner of that property, and that it would reduce the amount of area that they were able to build on.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
It was in front of council at that time.
Yeah, you're going to have
Any
all
other
buffer in their
questions?
driveway.
Any public comment?
We have Van Cadenhead, followed by Don Horton.
I'm not in favor of reducing any buffer yards that we're already requiring. While I was on the LPA, this came up that the driveways on a piece of property that was being developed had to have buffers between the driveway and the property line. So I'm just wondering how that's going to affect that particular ordinance that is already on the books. And the fact that it's inconvenient for the property owner to adhere to what the village regulations are and not have enough room to develop, you're once again making a whole village ordinance for one piece of property and the convenience of one property owner. And I just don't see that as being the way to operate. And I think we should have, if it's a 40-foot buffer and you don't think you need a 40-foot buffer, you got 20 feet on the commercial side, why not maintain a 10-foot buffer on the residential side? That would be a, you know, a compromise. But to eliminate a buffer on the residential side, I just, I don't see that as being helpful in any way, except to the person that owns that property. And for you to make a change, an ordinance that could be done all over the village in any number of other properties under development, I think is a real serious mistake. And I think to eliminate buffering that is already on the books as being required, the reason it's been required is for the privacy and for the noise and for the good of the village. So I would urge you not to do this at all. And if you do it, make some provision that the buffer is not completely eliminated. In other words, if a 10-foot buffer is required, then require a hedge or a 5-foot buffer or something on the residential side, because the commercial side is pretty much set in stone that they have to put in some kind of a buffer. But just to allow the residential developer to develop more area, I don't think that's a real good idea to remove the buffer for that. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had this discussion with Daniel when I saw this item come up, and I had this code, part of this code changed probably about 15 years, maybe 10 years ago. Time flies. I had a client that had a piece of property with a village center zoning and a marine use zoning sat next to each other. He simply wanted to put in a slab to be able to put in a whole house backup generator. At that point, he had a piece of property that was about 500 feet deep, and the village code was written to where he was going to have to put in a 20-foot buffer all the way down his property. Thousands and thousands of dollars, much more than what the cost of that slab was. So we had the code changed back then, and as I recall, Ed Kokonis was the planning director at that time. And it allowed for structures of less than, I think, 200 square feet or less. They didn't require this buffer. But this buffering requirement has always been a very ridiculous buffering requirement. In particular instances, in some instances it's necessary and it's right. But the council has granted variances in the past for residential that abutted residential conservation property. Now, the residential conservation property was, as it says, a conserved piece of property. This owner was going to be required to put in a 20-foot buffer to something that was acreage of buffer already across the fence line from them. So the council granted a variance, and they've granted a couple of variances in the past for that. I personally don't see the rationale between requiring buffering between residential uses and residential uses. I can see a requirement for there to be a buffering between, let's say, tourist commercial and a residential use. But yet at the same time, you're putting the illness on, chances are that tourist commercial property is already developed. And so somebody wanting to build next to that has already said that they wanted to build next to the airport, so to speak. And they're going to have to put in some 20-foot buffer. So I think this buffering requirement that's always been in the code has been just a little bit onerous on the residential property owner, because the commercial properties are pretty much already developed. And in most instances, they don't abut a residential use. You don't require commercial to commercial buffering. So I just think that maybe instead of the council once again piecemealing a little piece of the whole section, maybe if the LPA deems it wise, maybe the message they should send back to the council is, let your staff go in and logically look at the entire section of the buffering section of the code and maybe look at changing the whole thing instead of one little piece here and one little piece there, because that's where we usually end up with a problem. But thanks for the consideration.
Anybody else?
No one on Zoom either.
Okay. Any other comment?
I'm just here if you guys have any more questions.
Okay.
Daniel, I do. It's just pretty simple. It says here, staff recommends approval. Are you in favor of this change?
It's my job to do the will of council.
It's also, you're,
Good answer.
nice answer, but I'm not buying it. So you're a biology guy. So is this a good move for the Village of the Islands and for the
It's
environment?
hard to have a one-size-fits-all change to the code. There's some residential properties that abut commercial properties that are either large enough or in such a configuration that some buffering would be nice. But in more often than not, I think your R1s and your R1M FLUM properties, your 80 by whatever lots, I think a 20-foot buffer is a little large for that size property.
So when I see that the staff recommends this change, who does that represent? Does everybody on staff get together? Jennifer, is that you? Is that you're in your office, or is this a whole group of people? I'm sorry, but I got to get it out on the table.
I think it's a combination of Daniel and myself, having conversation about what the council requested from us and what we felt was the best way to address their concerns. And out of all the things that, we could think of, this would be the best way we felt would address their concerns. So the recommendation is we would recommend this to address their concerns.
That I think went back to Daniel's very well put answer, spun differently, and I understand why you did so I appreciate that. But I've also understand that there's currently efforts underway to look at the totality of the municipal code, in particular the LDRs. What I also understand, and this is my question to you, for the story behind the story of this one particular lot, it would be capable of getting a variance if council approved the variance to alleviate that particular lot's hardship, right?
At the meeting that spurred this direction, the applicant was in for a variance for the landscape requirement.
Okay, so given that purportedly imminently, how long out imminent is yet to be determined, but in light of that, I know that you've done this at Village Council direction, but I think that those that come up in between now and a comprehensive overhaul of the LDRs make sense, which would be able to address all of your concerns, both the particular ones that you just mentioned, as well as the Village Council being able to alleviate hardships.
You got any comment?
I do kind of thought. I tend to feel that a 20-foot buffer on a residential side is excessive. And I also think that if a person purchases a residential parcel that is adjacent to a commercial parcel, they're already aware of the fact that that's a commercial parcel. And the commercial should have the burden to place the buffer on there and not so much the residential side. But still at this point, even if we did approve this, we're not precluding a residential property owner from installing a buffer if they so chose to do so. We're just simply stating that the commercial side of the property that has already installed a buffer is sufficient to meet the buffering needs between the two parcels.
Wait.
I mean, there is beyond this one story behind a story, which I understand, which is why a variance procedure exists to address those. Ultimately, what you were doing is allowing for a larger residential structure by eliminating, as compared to what everybody else was able to build because they went next to a commercial. Maybe that's fair, maybe it's not. It's not our policy decision for this amendment to make, but it certainly is a benefit to that residence. It will now be able to be that much larger and still meet all of the requirements.
No, I am.
But that's an option for a property owner, just because they have the ability to
It's
do
also
so.
intensity and density.
But just because they have the opportunity to do it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what their intention is. Not everybody wants to build larger and bigger. There are new construction homes that are not larger and bigger on lots. We have a number of them. I will definitely agree that, but that's not 100% of property owners who are developing something are not building to their maximum capacity. You're just assuming that they're going to do that, and in all likelihood, that's not going to be the case.
$1,000.
So my question is we're talking buffers, but there's also setback requirements. That's not necessarily a buffer, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we haven't eliminated the setback from that line.
Yeah, no, the setbacks are the same.
You'll have to meet.
But in most scenarios, the buffer is going to be wider than a setback requirement.
Okay.
And how realistic is that? That's not really right, doesn't match up. To me, if the setback is
If the
7.5 on the property line, then why should the buffer be larger than 7.5 feet? I mean, I'm just taking, if we had to average it, 7.5 on one side and 7.5 on the other, but most people usually do 5 and 10. But why should we require a buffer that's larger than the setback?
It depends on for these, it's to buffer zoning districts from each other. And that's the intent of this whole section of code.
If you choose to build a residence next to a piece of commercial property and you want to look at that commercial piece of property, go with God.
I agree.
Have a nice view. I don't care.
I agree with that also.
But-
And if they sell the house and the next person doesn't want to look at it, they can always plant.
At $1,000 a tree because I'm too old to wait on it to grow, yeah, you're going to spend some money on it. Go with God.
But it's not like, it's back to what I was just saying. We're not eliminating
No.
the setbacks.
We're reducing
We're
them.
only reducing the buffer or eliminating the buffer. So they're not going to be allowed to build
We're
up to
eliminating
the
the
line.
requirement that they place a buffer. We're not
Yes.
precluding them from putting in a buffer.
That's right.
Of some sort.
It's the requirement of it, right.
My grandparents liked looking at the Sinclair station next door.
Sometimes it's nice to know what's coming at you.
That's how old I am. It was a-
All right, any more conversation? Did I call for public comment? I did.
We did already have it.
Done. Okay, so now I'm calling for a motion.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
I have a first and a second.
Cheryl Culbertson,
Yes.
Maureen Vaughan,
Yes.
Patrick Foley,
No.
Tony Hammond,
Yes.
Susan Raffadello,
No.
James Ryan,
Yes.
and Chair Deb Gillis.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2.
All right. Moving right along, item D is shoreline setback adjustments.
An ordinance of Isla Mirada, Village of Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 30, Land Development Regulations, Article 7, Environmental Regulations, Division 2, Docks and Shoreline Uses, Section 30-1542 of the Village Code, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
Ms. Jennifer?
Good evening again. This is another ordinance amendment that was direction of Village Council based on a application before the council for a appeal of a variance denial for somebody that had wasn't exactly a tiki hut, it was more of like a canopy structure that had been destroyed, and they rebuilt a large tiki hut without a permit. They came in for a variance request because they were within the shoreline setback. We denied that variance request. They appealed to council. At that time, the council requested that staff take a look at how we would allow tee huts on docks and within the shoreline setback, as in a lot of neighborhoods, that's a common practice to put your tee hut, I guess, on your dock in the setback. So we bounced around a couple things, and we thought that the easiest thing would be to make the change to the shoreline setback under non-water dependent accessory uses and structures on altered shorelines in canals, basins, and channels. I do have to point out that in the section, which is number 4 under that, that is the additional, we will be removing the words perpendicular to the shoreline, so it will just read, structures limited to non-enclosed gazebos and tee huts not to exceed 15 feet in height on docks shall be permitted within the 10-foot setback from the mean high water line. So that was the change that we're proposing based on the scenario I just presented. And at this time, staff recommends the adoption of the ordinance.
Okay. Public comment first? Comments here first. Public comment. Do I have any public comment?
Yes. Van Cadenhead.
When this was, Van Cadenhead again, when this was before the council, it was brought out that people on both sides and up and down this canal had tiki huts or some kind of shade structure on their docks. So it wasn't anything out of line. What was out of line was this shade structure was like that was destroyed in the hurricane, was essentially a canvas tent affair. And what they put in was a really nice Seminole type Miccosukee tiki hut. And the problem being is they put it too close to the water. Now, it came out in the discussion, which I think you ought to take into consideration this evening, is the edge of the man's dock that this is being considered for extends into a public waterway. So where you measure how far the setback is, it's not the edge of his dock, because the edge of his dock is encroaching into a public waterway. And I would ask that if you're going to make spot zoning, at least make sure that the spot that you're zoning is fully understood about what is there and what is on it. Because this man's concrete dock extends over his property line, extends into a public waterway. So where you're going to measure the setback from is pretty much up in the air. And I don't think you should, once again, spot zoning for a single situation. He asked for a variance. If you want to give him a variance, you can do whatever you want to. You can recommend anything you want to. But I'm just saying, he did it. He applied for an after-the-fact permit for an illegally placed tiki hut. And rather than move, the tiki hut could be moved back. He's got room to move it back 10 feet. If he wanted to cut it off and crane it back and more toward his house, he could still be legal with what he's got. But to leave it where it is and allow him to measure the setback from the edge of his dock, which is not the edge of the water. The edge of the water belongs to the people. It belongs to that whole section of canal in there has a line that demarcates a public canal. And his property, his dock, extends into that public canal, which is a point I'm trying to make, but that I hope you'll consider. Thank you very much.
We have Don Horton.
Good afternoon again. So, you know, when I was the building official of the county commissioners passed an ordinance that unenclosed gazebos, chikis, and similar structures didn't even need a permit. And it didn't matter if I argued with them or not. They just said, you don't need a permit. At that time, there were a lot of shade structures, tiki huts, and fish cleaning canopies that were built on people's docks at that point. So there's a lot of them scattered throughout the village, actually throughout the whole county. A lot of them were, you know, after the village incorporated and changed its rules, considered non-conforming. But yet the village still allowed cheeky huts of no more than 100 square feet at the end of a pile-supported dock going out into the water. So this only makes sense that you would allow, if you're still going to allow them to be out on a pile-supported dock 100 feet out into the water, that you let somebody put a cover over their fish cleaning station on their dock. Thank you.
I think this covered more than just one. It was brought up concerning one property, but it was determined that there was several properties that if their tiki cover, whatever, had been destroyed, oh, looky there. Oh, yeah, that's just a couple. that it would, that they would have the same problem. And that's where the request came through council, is that, okay, we've only got one in front of us, we could handle the one, but potentially we have a lot more coming forward. So I think that's where the request came from. They did look at the fact that there was not just one. What else? Gentlemen?
Well, I think we're simply tasked with the idea of approving that they go ahead and follow this procedure. And then it becomes a village council's responsibility to decide how that's going to look like, if I understand this correctly. Jennifer?
Well, the recommendation is for the ordinance change that's in front of you this evening, which is to add the number 4 under section 30-1542D2, which would say structures limited to non-enclosed gazebos and tiki huts not to exceed 15 feet in height on docks shall be permitted within the 10-foot setback from the mean high water line.
Okay.
The county only allows 12 feet. Is there a reason we picked 15?
All of our accessory structures are 15 feet in height
Okay.
in the code.
And the village does not allow the terminal platform structures anymore, is my understanding.
Correct.
We
Not
don't-
in canals.
Not in canals.
Yep.
Okay.
Do we have a clarify based on what? Based on what Don was talking about, I was just looking for it. Is there still a 100 square foot limit on what can be out there? So that we're not looking at the Miccosukee Reception Center out there?
On pier-style docks in open water, we allow up to 100 square feet at the terminal platform.
But that's the cap? Okay, and as I understand it, because this was a problem at one point on our canal, is that the roof line may not extend past the cap on the wall, whatever it is. The roof line of this structure cannot extend into the waterway. When you come around the corner, you do not want your outriggers to run into somebody's roof line coming around the corner on the canal.
I don't know that that's specified in the code.
Okay,
I will say that typically they do extend a foot on each side.
and
They
I
call
would,
it the drip
and I
line.
think that needs to be addressed, because you do not want to run your outriggers into somebody's roof line if there's somebody else coming out of the canal, especially if both of them are sport fishermen. And it happens.
I will say, due to the nature, and not to bring up the county again, but they do allow that 1 foot drip edge to extend.
Needs to be in.
Yeah.
So it's the edge. Having seen the outrigger in the roof line, you could sell tickets to it.
So you're trying to say that that's a poor captain?
What was the last part?
Wouldn't it be the captain's error to get his outrigger stuck in somebody's tiki structure?
Just don't have it out there. In the first place, I was under the impression you shouldn't extend a roof line out over the water anyway.
So, but are we considering a foot over he was saying that the county,
I think like any fish cleaning table, I don't want to speak for them all, but they all have like a little, there's a little hangover on them.
There's a little hangover on them.
Usually it's right at the edge of the table. You tend not to see it, but having looked down having watched them come down the canal, which it was extending, and see the outriggers and everything else get caught when you've got one boat coming out, one boat going in was not pretty.
Okay.
There was a lot of shouting.
Always a lot of shouting.
I remember this. I remember this item coming up before council, and I remember in public testimony, there was some pretty animated negative testimony, if I remember correctly, from people around that. So I do think we need a good, thorough look at this, and I'm not sure even how to make a comment on it other than the fact that we certainly don't want to make this change just to meet this one need, for sure.
Which I don't think we are.
Right, all right. And Jennifer, you hold up a notebook. Tell me what that is exactly.
So the applicant for the variance that was before the council, in part of their response to my denial of their variance, did a tour, so to speak, mostly of Lower Matacumbe and Upper Matacumbe, I think, and came up with over 50 tiki huts on docks that potentially this would impact.
That was going to be my next question, was how many? Over 50?
Yeah. It says they revealed that over 50 structures are out of compliance with the rear property setback line regulation of the village. I didn't count them specifically, but.
But when they were constructed and we were county incorporated, I think the county would allow it.
Correct, but,
Unincorporated.
so we do have a provision in our code that requires that if something is damaged more than 50% of the cost of the item, they then have to bring it back into compliance with today's code. So if they were to get damaged in, say, a hurricane, they would not be able to rebuild that structure today. And I think that was the point.
Okay. Any other discussion? I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance as stated, as presented to us.
I'll
Any-
second.
I have a first and a second.
Okay, Lori Lalonde,
Yes.
Cheryl Culbertson,
Yes.
Patrick Foley, Tony Hammond,
Yes.
Susan Raffanello,
Yes.
James Ryan.
I apologize, but it's going to be approved with the comments that Jennifer made, right? Or it's as stated?
As stated.
Okay, yes.
And Chair Deb Gillis.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right. Moving right along to item E, it's a moratorium on accepting new administrative relief applications.
An ordinance of Islamorada, Village of Islands, Florida, establishing a temporary moratorium within the village on the acceptance of new administrative relief applications, providing for exemptions, providing for procedures for vested rights and judicial review, providing for a term, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for transmittal of the ordinance to the State Department of Commerce, and providing for an effective date upon the approval of this ordinance by the State Department of Commerce.
Okay, I'm sorry, who's presenting this?
I'll-
John? Oh, John, where are you?
Roger's not in our system, so we'll have to change that. So at a recent meeting of the council, if you were watching, you probably saw the discussion we had regarding administrative relief applications when there was 2 presented before the council, and the council had some concerns about awarding those based on, upcoming potential, possible takings claims or other things regarding the fact that we have no additional BPAS allocations at this time. So at that meeting, the council asked that staff provide a comprehensive plan to look at administrative relief and how we're handling administrative relief and what are the potential uses for administrative relief permits. And And in conjunction with that, they asked legal to draft this moratorium, a temporary moratorium on administrative relief applications, so that would give us some time to consider that plan and some breathing room so that we didn't have, I think we have 5 that are going to be eligible upcoming, have them, breathing down our necks while we're looking at this comprehensive plan. So before you have the proposed temporary moratorium. I think it mimics the BPAS one that was adopted last year. And we would just ask at this time that you recommend approval.
Okay. Discussion at the table or public comment? Public comment. Let's do that first. Any public comment?
We have Via Kidnap, followed by Don Horton.
Well, whenever it says moratorium, I've always been for it. I've been for a moratorium on market rate. I've been for a moratorium on TDRs. I've been for a moratorium on administrative relief. Administrative relief, we have so few that are actually in play now. We have 300 that were granted to us by the governor.
No, those are affordable units.
Affordable.
Administrative relief.
But what I'm saying is, there has been a lot of discussion about taking some of those 300 and using them for taking suits, for giving somebody something. An administrative relief fills an administrative relief billet to take somebody out of a taking suit. We have like 27 left?
23.
23? Okay, so I mean, they're gold. They're definitely gold, and we should have a set priority method, procedure in place to deal with those 23. And I'm all for this temporary moratorium, and I hope you pass it. Thank you very much.
I feel like you're just dealing with yin and yang here. Listen, you've got people that have been sitting in that queue that in good faith, more than 4 years ago, have put an application in. Always at the end of that tunnel, if they didn't get an allocation or weren't lucky enough to get an allocation, they've been hoping that they could bubble themselves up to the top. And these are our friends and our neighbors that are in that queue. These folks have been hoping for 4 years, like everybody else that's been in the BPAS queue, that they could get themselves a permit. And there are people that are coming up to the top. And one of my clients just recently went in front of council and as they've done in the past, they want to kick the can down the road. They're actually about to pop up again with another, now up at close to 5 years, so getting another perseverance point. Look, the rules are the rules, and the council had 3 things that they could do. They could buy the property or make an offer to buy the property at a reasonable amount. They could issue a permit, or they could do something else. I've watched them do something else a couple of times, but historically in the past, they've granted these people that have waited in good faith for 4 years to get themselves a permit. There are BPAS allocations that are set aside for this intended purpose, and I just don't think that we need to continue to kick the can down the road. We need to give these people that have been in a queue in good faith their permits, or buy the property if they're willing to sell the property, although we continue to buy property and do nothing with it. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Any other public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
No one with their hand raised.
All right, to the table. Patrick? No comment. Tony?
Jennifer, you said 23.
Yes,
That's
sir.
23 remaining in the queue?
No, there's 23 permits, administrative relief permits available. We have 62 people on the BPAS list.
60 in BPAS.
62, yeah.
While he's thinking.
I think we need the moratorium to provide the breathing room for staff to evaluate the comprehensive comp plan changes and viewpoints that are going to go forward to evaluate. I know that we have discussed this for years. I know I have personally asked for years for a true overlay and true evaluation of the likelihood of success under the Burt Harris claims. That is, when did people buy the property? Did they buy it in the last 10 years, but they might get an administrative permit? That doesn't make sense to me. When other people who may have owned the land for 50 years and have a legitimate claim could be taken care of in that way, as opposed to the village spending taxpayer money. So I think that the moratorium is necessary to allow a strategic plan on how to deal with all of these issues and how to hopefully save the taxpayers some money. We're not an open spigot, as sometimes it seems we are.
Cheryl or Jimmy?
I unfortunately think this is a necessity. I was looking to make sure that I read the 6 months correctly, that this is for 6 months. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't skim over that incorrectly. It's for 6 months, but I wouldn't kick it any further. This needs to be done.
As a thing, it's got to go to council and then it's got to go to DCA. But I think we passed an ordinance not too long ago that once council does first reading, it is in effect.
Okay, it just,
If I remember right.
but it needs to be addressed, it needs to be done, and everybody else needs to put aside the petty stuff and sit down and get this done. It's time. This is not bubblegum time. This is time to get this done.
Jim or Lori or myself?
Jennifer, do you know how many people will come up in the next 6 months?
About 5.
Or maybe,
In the next 6 months,
or year, whatever's easier.
I want to say it's about 10, but I don't have the list in front of me, so I don't have that number off the top of my head. Sorry.
I just perused the list, and there's like 4 people that had their application in since 2019.
Yeah, I did that too. There's 4 or 5 is what I saw, but there may be some other things that I'm missing. But I hate to kick it down the road again. The argument of somebody that bought it 10 years ago versus somebody that bought it 50 years ago is very on point argument, and I like it. But these administrative leaves have been in the system a long time, and I personally think that there shouldn't be a moratorium on those. It's just my personal belief of that we're kicking a lot down the road. How I know we don't have an other category of what the council can offer. I mean, currently we have 3 things that the council can do. They can give them a relief, they can offer to buy the land, and they can do other. And other used to mean that we gave them extra points. Well, extra points doesn't do any good now. So there's, with the other is very difficult to come up with an other solution right now. But at the same time, these people, it reminds me of the land dedication and everything else. They've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and they've been trying to follow the rules. And some of them, the reason they didn't get their allocations is because they're sensitive lands. Maybe we should buy them then. But that's to be evaluated when they come forward. And to keep piling things down the road, I would like to see it go forward now.
Can I just make one clarification to
Sure.
Cheryl's comment? It is 6 months, but there is an option for the council to renew.
I saw that,
Okay.
but I just want to make sure that it's 6 months. You have to make a decision to do something within 6 months.
Unless the council decides
Unless,
to
yeah,
renew.
well,
I just want to be clear about that.
So the
Well,
23.
The council is already working on extending the 6 months for the market rate stuff. So we're about to go into our second 6 months on the market rate. Go ahead.
So the 23 that are in the queue are all applying for administrative relief.
No, there's
No, there's 23 permits
allocation.
available that we have, that we could give to 23 people who, if they were to apply.
Okay.
We have 23 permits in hand.
And how many have we to apply?
Right now, we have 2 applications in. They have to wait till the end of the quarter, of which they have hit the 4 annual quarters. And so I think we've got like 4 or 5 coming up in the next couple quarters, and then we have like another 2 or 3 that they're sporadic, so you don't see them all at once. There's not like a certain, I can't tell you, we've got 10 this year off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and calculate their dates. I have one that has the dates. I can find it at some point and send it to you if you'd like, but it won't help you for tonight.
I think I'm looking at it right now, I believe.
Well, I just provided him a list of the last list of people on the list that has a year date on it. It doesn't have the exact date. I don't think that it has a year date. I mean, only a year date. And there's 2 that has been postponed. I think there's another one that's on council for this Thursday, maybe. One more on council for this Thursday.
There's no administrative relief on for this Thursday. The 2 that are in process were continued out till October.
Right. Those 2 got continued to October, and it looks like there's I passed it away too quickly. No, it's okay.
So I
Just
have-
count the orange ones. How many is on there?
I found my list
7.
here. So I've
7?
got
Okay.
That's 2019.
1, 2. I've got 2 eligible in July. I've got 1 eligible in August, 1 eligible in September, 3 eligible in October, and then nothing until February of next year.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1,
6 or 7.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 eligible.
Plus the 2 that are
Plus
on
the
hold.
2, so that's 9.
So 9.
So look at section 4, A, and then the 3 points that are there. Are these people that have been in a queue that have got their applications in, do they fall under this?
The 2 people, I'm not looking at what section?
It says the Government Act of Development approval was obtained prior to the effective date of the ordinance upon which the property owner has determinedly relied in good faith by making substantial expenditures, and that it would be highly.
So the ordinance would not apply to the 2 people that are in process right now, if that's what you're asking. The 2 people that were continued out till October, this moratorium would not apply to them because they already have an application in. It would only apply to anybody who has not applied yet. It's
Okay.
accepting new applications is the moratorium.
Jennifer, so we have 23 allocations available, that's building permits?
23 administrative relief allocations.
60 some odd that are there.
62. Mhm.
And so we're trying to figure out how to divide 23 into 60?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe try
And-
3
But the way, the basis of the way it's been done, and if I misstate this, please make sure you correct me, is that it's done on time, on dates. And if you look at the 63, there's about 7, well, she counted 7, and there's the 2 that they postponed or delayed. That would be coming up within the next year. Okay, so we'll say 10 in the next year of those 23. Then next year, the following year, you'd have another batch coming up.
So why doesn't the village just get rid of the 23 and
You can only use them for administrative relief.
okay, well, there's, yeah.
Once
They're
they're,
restricted.
well, I think once they're gone, they're gone. And so I think the reason or the rationale for the breathing room, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, is to allow them to evaluate whether the method they're using is the best method for determining the most worthy properties on which to be built. Because right now, the administrative permit pool is simply a waiting game. If you wait out your time, you come in and your expectation is you're going to get that one. That may not be the best from a planning perspective on what parcels are land deserving of them as opposed to, you know, and not that I'm unsympathetic to those that put in their time, but versus those who have simply put in their time.
I think part of what the council has tasked us to look at is you know, the economics of it all as well, and what is beneficial to the village, which lots would be more beneficial to give these permits to versus ones that we may have to pay out for takings claims. Also, that other category that the chair spoke of, what could the other be? What are the options? Is there an opportunity to use some of the 300 early out evacuation permits to do something with those? So there are several things that we're going to be looking at over the course of the next, you know, 6-8 months that, that to Mr. Raffanella's point, you know, breathing room would be helpful.
It'd be nice if we could just stop time. I don't think that's an option.
Would have been nice if this was all resolved like years ago, but.
I'll take the blame.
They thought it was. They thought this was the plan. This was the plan that was going to work.
They did. They did. I was involved in some of that, and this was our backup plan. This is what, and should we have had more foresight? Probably. But, you know, hindsight's always 20/20. Always 20/20.
Let me refresh your memory that we stood, when you and I were both sitting on affordable housing, and we had this conversation for the council in 2010. They said, oh, it will never get there, and we'll get more before then. Lo and behold, it's 2024. Yes. We haven't gotten more, and none of us got younger. So,
and
we're here.
True. And that one, I didn't make that decision on. I don't know. We did public comment. Is any more comment?
Motion
Jem,
to
did you
approve
want? Wait. Jem, did you want to comment or not?
Yeah, I have one question. Should we finish the motion? And then we can still comment after a motion, right?
Yeah, we comment.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So you mentioned that in 6 to 8 months, you know, we're hoping to have this kind of squared up. I'm just taking the words. But would reviewing, yeah, but would reviewing 10 applications for this administrative relief, I mean, is that,
What was the, I'm sorry, what was your question?
So you said, well, I guess we'll say the next year, that we're hoping to be, you know, squared up and everything's good. There sounds like 10 of them are coming, you know, or are eligible for this administrative relief application over the next year. So to me, you know, I'm not trying to sound like I don't want the moratorium. You know, if it provides breathing room, that's what it does. But I just, you know, these going forward, I don't even think we're not taking applications anymore at this time.
No, we are.
We are
So
on
that's
this.
Well, so we're not taking any new.
I'm sorry, we're not taking any building permit, BPAS.
We're not right now because we're in a moratorium.
Yes.
Once that ends, we will have to.
But now we want a moratorium on.
We're now asking to put a moratorium on this, so we don't, any of these people that are coming up eligible cannot apply. Because I think the idea is that if we come up with a new process or a new plan or new guidelines for administrative relief, when they apply, they are fully aware of what the new process plan guidelines would be, and they're applying at their own understanding of everything, versus changing the rules in the middle of people applying.
At the end of this moratorium, wouldn't we have that, all these people that were eligible, then you would just see the, I guess, the pile of applications, if you will. You would get the stack.
It's likely. It depends on what plan we come up with, or I assume, you know, what the guidelines we set out for. You know, obviously, if we say, you know, we're not going to give any to oceanfront lots, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to say that, but if we did, you know, I'm guessing that maybe some of these people would not apply if they were oceanfront lots.
So in my, and please, I'm trying to just have a conversation, and that, to me, is more subject to these, the term was thrown around, so I'm going to say it, these takings claims. Because now that these people applied when there was a certain ruling or certain codes in place, and now we're changing some of these things around, putting a moratorium, and now that I feel like sets us up to be in worse position.
I can let Roger speak to that.
And maybe that's
complete.
maybe that's off base, but that's what I kind of feel.
Not drastically off. It could go either way.
It could go either way.
Let Roger.
So I think the answer to your question is for somewhat straightforward, which is just simply, this is a temporary moratorium. It's meant to just toll the period, whether it's going to happen or not. No one has accrued those rights just yet until they actually apply. So this is just tolling the procedures.
Okay.
But you are right that all 10 of these, assuming nothing changes and the moratorium just goes away in 6 months, all 10 of them could apply in the same quarter.
Right, it doesn't change their
It doesn't change
substantive
their
application.
status. There's a time frame within that they have to apply for administrative relief. That time frame is,
It's told.
I think the word's told. It's on hold, and the time that 6 months doesn't apply to them now. So we would have those 10 plus whatever else would be coming up next year to whatever solutions they can come up with.
And could very well be that the solution remains the same. That the
It could
process
be.
remains the same.
It could be.
It
but
could be.
Until we do the research, it's hard to.
It's also an opportunity to research and access and see what access you have to other state funds for potential purchase of lands. It's the opportunity to acquire. That has been bandied about before, but it's an honest assessment.
There's a lot of moving parts. I mean, we're also
There's a lot of balls going up in the air right now.
We're also in the process, along with the county, looking for the conversations about, do we want to ask the state for more allocations? And that hopefully that conversation will wrap up towards the end of this year. So, all of those conversations sort of interplay with each other. And we're trying to get a handle on all of those things, so.
Thank you.
Cheryl,
Okay.
you were saying?
Cheryl, you were going to make a motion?
Where were we? Motion? Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Okay, Cheryl Culberson,
Yes.
Susan Raffanello,
Yes.
Patrick Foley,
Yes.
Tony Hammond,
Yes.
James Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lori Lalonde,
Yes.
and Chair Deb Gillis.
No.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay, moving on. Item F is related to Creekside.
This is an ordinance of Isla Mirada, Village of Islands, Florida, considering the request of LAH Creekside LLC to amend the official zoning map from Village Center, VC, to Neighborhood Commercial, NC, for the subject property located on Plantation Key with the real estate numbers 00437590, 000000, 00437-610-000, and 00437-640-000, as legally described herein, providing for the transmittal of this ordinance to the State Department of Commerce, and providing for an effective date upon the approval of this ordinance by the State Department of Commerce.
All right.
All right, good evening. We're here this evening with the applicant, LAH Creekside LLC, who has submitted a map amendment application requesting approval for a zoning map amendment from Village Center District to Neighborhood Commercial District on the subject property located at 90611 and 90691 and 90701 Old Highway. The property in total is comprised of 1.4698 acres, and the current use of the property is hotel motel. The zoning map amendment will allow the applicant to transfer the hotel motel units to another site in Isla Mirada and redevelop the existing hotel motel into multifamily affordable housing units. The applicant has submitted his letter of intent detailing this request. The subject property, again, is 1.47 acres in Plantation Key. The property is not recognized as any habitat to any state or federal listed animal species and is not within the state conservation recreation lands boundary or critical habitat area. Pursuant to the village's GIS data and records, the parcel is not defined as any habitat. The subject property currently has an existing village center zoning district designation. The adjacent property to the south is designated village center. To the north, the adjacent property is designated as commercial fishing. The properties to the west across the old highway and overseas highway are marine use and recreation, and to the east across the canal is residential single family. The character of the surrounding area is mixed use with a collective of commercial uses, open space, and single family residences. Pursuant to Section 30-697, the purpose of neighborhood commercial zoning district is to provide a compact commercial area designated and designed, and intended to allow for a mix of residential, office, and local retail sales, servicing the daily needs of local residents within convenient traveling distance. Though not proposed, any future development it shouldn't say, though not proposed. Any future development of the subject property would require site plan application approval. This will ensure that the subject property meets the standards of review of the comprehensive plan and land development regulations, including but not limited to the minimum requirements for open space, habitat preservation, concurrency management, level of service standards for transportation, infrastructure, wastewater, stormwater, and other public services. Offset parking, off-street parking, and internal circulation, required setbacks, landscaping, dedicated conservation easements for existing habitat, on-site and off-site improvements, and any design amenities required to achieve the land use compatibility for surrounding land use zoning districts. Pursuant to Section 30-411D4B of the Code of Ordinances, the Village Council must find that the application is consistent with the comprehensive plan and that the applicant has complied with all procedural requirements of this section, and that the maintenance of the existing zoning of the property does not accomplish legitimate public purpose. The Village Council shall make this determination on a finding of legitimate public purpose based on one or more of the following factors: demand for the proposed zoning district in the village in relation to the amount of land currently zoned and available to accommodate that demand. Pursuant to the village's GIS data and records, there are approximately 36 parcels that are designated within the neighborhood commercial district, which represents approximately 0.01% of the total of 7,108 parcels within Islamorada. Of the 36 parcels within the neighborhood commercial district, 5 parcels are vacant, which equates to approximately 13% of the total neighborhood commercial parcels. Compatibility of the site's physical, geological, hydrological, and other environmental features with the uses permitted in the proposed zoning designation. The proposed use of the conversion for hotel motel to workforce affordable housing is allowed in the use as a use in the proposed zoning district. Data errors, including errors in mapping, vegetated types, and natural features described in the comprehensive plan. There is no evidence that there are any errors in the village's data, records, or other resources. New issues. The need for workforce affordable housing still exists within the village. The village has accepted 300 additional affordable housing units and is ready to allocate them to aid in meeting our affordable housing goals. Recognition of a need for additional detail or comprehensiveness. The applicant is working on a TDR application to transfer the hotel motel units to a different property. All approvals will be before the village council at the same time. Compatibility of the proposed district with the property surrounding the site plan of the requested rezoning and any applicable neighborhood or redevelopment plan. As previously indicated, the subject property currently has an existing village center zoning district designation. The adjacent property to the south is designated village center. To the north is designated commercial fishing, and the properties to the west across Old Highway and Overseas Highway are designated marine use and recreation, and to the east across the canal is residential single family. Again, the character of the surrounding area is mixed use with a collective of commercial uses, open space, and single family residences. Staff has reviewed this request for a zoning amendment, map amendment to the village center for neighborhood commercial, from village center to neighborhood commercial, and determined that the request meets the criteria. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the map amendment.
Thank you. The applicant is here. Would you like to make a presentation?
Yes, Bart Smith on behalf of the applicant. As was stated, the intent and purpose of this is twofold. One, Creekside is a 50-unit hotel that their intent is LAH also owns the island. What they're going to do is transfer those transient units to be redeveloped at the Islander. And of course, what happens when you have the units transferred off the site? Well, you have a vacant hotel property that has very good actual bones to the concrete building. And so the goal is then to convert it to affordable housing. First for actually workers to construct these things, and then for the workers to actually work at the hotels or work in other places in the village. And so in order to facilitate that, we need to first transfer off the units and then be able to convert it. Well, there's an interesting catch in the village center. It prohibits the conversion of hotels, motels to affordable housing. I don't know why it's there, but it is there. And so we've looked at any which way to not have to change the zoning, but ultimately sometimes you just have to look at it and say, you have to change the zoning. And so when we did that, we looked at other zoning categories that are under the same future land use map, because that provides the same consistency with the comprehensive plan, because it's under the same future land use map of mixed use. And so that then would provide consistency and provide the easiest path forward. And of course, all of the same for all intents and purposes and uses. So this is the parcel itself. You're all familiar with it. It's right along Old State Road. It butts the water. It's got an existing motel on it. Its future land use map right now is mixed use. It's about 1.5 acres. And the current land use district map is village commercial. When we're done with it, I believe the unit count is around 12 units, which is within the allowed density for this parcel. So the proposal, of course, as I've stated, is to change it to neighborhood commercial, transfer off the 50 lawfully established hotel room units, and then apply for the workforce units that are available. Once we get those, place those on, convert this property, then begin work. Now, all of these approvals, though, of course, have to come back through, but we first need to get the zoning approved, and that is step one. This is what I explained. You can't convert it, so this is the alternative. Everything under the code is about the same. The density doesn't change. The intensity for all intent is pretty much the same. Building heights are about the same. Floor area ratios are very similar, and the uses are very similar. The purpose of the comprehensive plan for the mixed use is for mixed use patterns of development, including affordable housing, employee housing, so it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the policies under the mixed use, and it's consistent with all other parts of the code. And of course, this will assist in developing additional affordable housing, and it's the most appropriate manner to utilize this property after it's been transferred off. I won't bore you with this part, as Jennifer already went through it. That's just the survey of all the additional lands, how many are zoned neighborhood commercial, and of course, then we have the affordable housing. Jennifer went through the different parcels, and so with that, unless there's any questions, I would hope that you can vote for approval, and of course, we've got a lot more different steps we have to come back and get approved, but this is the first one that we need to start moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to do public comment first?
You want to do, sure, public comment. Did you sign up?
Did I sign up?
Yes.
I wasn't planning on commenting.
Well, the rule is you're supposed to sign up.
I'm going to sign up right now.
Yeah, it's supposed to be before the item, but
Then I won't comment. Which way do you want to do it?
you can, I'll let you comment, but in the future, you need to remember that.
I apologize for my
Okay.
omission, but I wasn't going to comment. And all I want to say simply is, I've heard dozens of people come up here and use the word affordable housing. It's a Trojan horse. I would like to think that this will eventually go, and it will be affordable housing, rather than a hotel, a motel, a beer bar, or something else. So I just caution you on the fact that affordable housing, and using the word affordable housing, several times in presentations, often doesn't materialize that way. I'm hoping that isn't the case here. Thank you.
Thank you.
She'll need a slip turned in, Tom, please.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Nobody else?
No.
Harvey's not here.
Any? Obviously not. Do we have public comment on Zoom?
I do.
On Zoom? You're not on
Oh,
Zoom.
do we have Zoom? I'm sorry, forgot about Zoom.
No one on Zoom was looking up.
Okay, now you may comment.
Okay, I have 3 points that I need to make. The first one is, are you aware of the historic value of the restaurant that's sitting there that you're going to close? Because that is the original Harry's Place. And for those who have been in the county long enough, Harry Harris was the first commissioner from the Upper Keys, and that was his restaurant and bar. It's also the first liquor license outside of Key West, and when it became Monroe County. So you have an historic piece of property sitting there in the middle, but it's not your hotel units. I applaud the fact that you want to move the hotel units, but I would like to make sure that there is that we amend this so that none of the TDRs can be granted until the hotel units are converted to affordable units and must meet the conditions to follow affordable as exist in the village. And Mr. Quick, I'm sorry, Roger, do I have the correct language? I know I discussed it briefly with Jennifer today, but I would like to make sure that's in here, that this is a requirement prior to anything else being issued. Those hotel units must be converted to affordable in perpetuity for the village community.
Okay, yeah, that should not be an issue, and in fact, I believe that's already a code requirement.
I would just say that they have to transfer, they have to do the TDRs before they convert. They can't hold two types of.
But can they go concurrently?
Yes.
Okay, the
yeah.
TDR is predicated on this being converted.
When we talked earlier today, I thought about sequencing, and so the TDR could happen, and then we could condition that to say that prior to any sort of construction at the Islander, there has to be a certain percentage of the workforce housing units finished.
Mr. Smith, am I making myself?
Yeah, and just from a logistical standpoint, so everyone understands, we need to pull the TDRs off from a density to put these on here.
Okay.
And then then what we're doing is we're going to start construction internally on these. But we don't want to transfer the hotel units off until we have the affordable, because we would operate this as a hotel unless we're assured we've got affordable units to go build there. That's like the whole point.
You ain't got nobody to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay, that's my primary concern. I have seen too much prestidigitation, and I'm not impressed.
No, I get it, but you understand the concept of we got to basically get the TDRs off so that we have no density from the TDRs, the transients.
Yeah.
And
But
then
there
we
is
gotta
a
put the
mechanism in
affordables.
place so that there's an automated or a snapback provision so that prior to you getting the first thing that works with that TDR having arrived on your property, these must be converted on their logistically to a affordable housing.
Look, I'd just love for you to give us the TDRs for the affordable right now so we know that we can do it.
I'm just.
You need to talk to council about that.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
but I'm just saying I would like to make sure that we all have an understanding, and I would like that included in whatever we're sending over to.
Understood, and that's a reasonable request. Yes.
Okay, just makes everybody much happier, much more comfortable, and if we have to put in following the set guidelines is agreed to by the state of Florida, blah, blah, blah.
So we aren't voting on whether or not they can transfer them. All we are voting on is the changing of the zone.
I'm not going to agree to a land zone until I know everything else is going to occur. Then since he's smiling and agreeing and nodding his head up and down, not going back and forth, and we've all articulated this.
You can put these recommendations on the record.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want the recommendation on record.
I understand.
It's got to go like that. My other thing is I would like you to recognize when you're bringing things forward, looking at the historical value of some of the pieces of property. We've got a whole lot of things left that are historical that survived multiple storms, and this piece of property also survived the 1960 hurricane. So it was interesting that it was there, and I think Tony knows it well.
Was that Donna?
At night, the restaurant in the middle
No, it was the hurricane.
went through the 1960 hurricane, yes.
Donna.
Yeah.
It belonged to Mr. Harris. But it's, the other question I have is, when these transfer, my biggest concern is, are we going over density by sending these 50 units down to Islander?
No, we've done that calculation.
That's my question.
No, we have a cap on hotel units in the village, and they're transferring those to the Islander, and that maintains that number in our cap, so they're not increasing the number.
I think she was referring to the density on the Islander property.
Yeah, and we.
By adding 50.
I'm sorry, no, we did the major conditional use review, and they're still under their FAR and everything.
It is very crowded in Upper Matacumbe on a Friday afternoon and a Saturday evening, and I'm just trying not to add to the mayhem. So, any more than we have to. Okay, I'm sorry, that's all I have.
Yep.
Jimmy?
Yeah, my only question is you said something that the current zoning doesn't allow for the affordables?
No, it doesn't allow the conversion of a hotel motel to affordable housing. So what you'd have to do if we kept it Village Center, which it's not feasible, we'd have to knock down the building and then put up a new building in basically the same footprint to build affordable, which just doesn't make sense.
I'm not sure that qualifies either.
No, because that wouldn't be the conversion, it'd be new affordable, and affordable housing is allowed, but not the conversion of a hotel motel to affordable housing.
It says
Knocking down, I don't think solves that problem, but what you're doing solves that problem.
Yes,
correct. Okay, so that's the issue.
Exactly.
That structure.
Yep.
It's not, because
That's actually not wood.
no, it's concrete, but it's because I didn't know if it was the amount, because there's 50 you're asking for. I think there's 3 parcels there, so.
No, it's literally a direct prohibition on the conversion of hotels, motels to affordable.
Yeah. Why do we have that?
Right?
That's something.
Not here to solve the world's problems today, but trying to get
That's
this.
something that needs to be addressed. Not that we have, I mean, that is not a dry lot motel, but we do have some that are dry lot motels, and they would be ideal for a little community, apartment community. We can't convert them.
I've got a couple questions. Is there a monetary transfer of money when you send the development rights down to the Islander?
No, it's owned by the same entity. Or technically, it's a different LLC, but the underlying ownership is the same.
And do you purchase the rights to affordable housing to build there? Or is it just
Purchase them?
the village just awards them?
They're allocated
They're
from
awarded.
the village. They're awarded.
They're like a regular allocation, only they're
They're
affordable.
the workforce units.
And I would just make a comment. I tend to agree with Tom. I watched the county commissioners use workforce housing as a facade to develop major pieces of property, and that never works out, but they use it as the most attractive bait to get anything passed. So whenever I hear affordable housing, all of a sudden I say, what's going on behind there? Because the county commissioners are notorious for that, and I'm not very familiar with the situation here in Isla Mirada with workforce housing. This is in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Technically, it's 99 years, but, we'll probably be underwater in 99 years, so.
And how many units? 12?
Approximately 12, I believe, was the last design. Because they're going to have bedrooms and kitchens instead of just being, 200 to 300 square
What
feet.
kind of rent are you looking at for?
Yep.
What kind of rent dollar amounts?
I'm not sure, but it'll be under the HUD guidelines.
There's a schedule that if you look on the village website that will tell you.
But the intent is actually to utilize it for the workers that work at the Islander. So that's the first right for them. But obviously, you have a unit open, you're going to rent it out to someone in the workforce.
This particular project, because I too am a Trojan horse scaredy cat with affordable housing, because we've seen it repeatedly used as the only justification for upzoning properties. Here we actually have a property that's in the Village Activity Center and is being arguably downzoned, more like parallel zoned, but it is not a dramatic increase or an increase at all in intensity and density, which makes me have much less concern than I typically do about the Trojan horse affordable housing argument.
Oh, look, if you look at the record here, about a year and a half ago, we wrote to Dan Galizio when he was the planning director requesting, is there any way to just get the allocations as it is? And we've ultimately, after Dan left and Jennifer came in, did you ever get a response? No, but I think the answer is no, we need to change the zoning. So this has been the intent and purpose from day one. Jennifer's shaking her head at these conversations.
I was around when they made that rule about not converting hotels into residence. I was there.
May I ask you a question for clarification, since I'm not sure? Anything we have that's affordable is in perpetuity. That's what we did here in the village. Did the county go to in perpetuity, or did Key West go to in perpetuity?
They're all 99 years.
Yeah, that's what they're calling perpetuity.
Okay,
You can't-
99, I know, 99 year, I know, I still twitch when I say in
In
perpetuity.
perpetuity, like if you do that under the law,
I know.
typically, then basically someone can challenge it and get it stricken
I
down.
know, I remember rap way too well,
Yeah.
but it's,
So like,
but no more 20 years like they were doing for.
no. So like the city of Key West is 50 and the city has the right to automatically renew it for 50. The county's 99, city of Marathon's 99, village is 99.
Okay, just making sure that I didn't miss something that
Yep,
dropped
nope.
back to a 20-year. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, there's not anyone that doesn't have that anymore.
One question, is the restaurant going to remain there, or is that going to be converted as well?
I'm not aware of any intent on the restaurant at this point.
That's within the property limits over.
Yes.
So in our staff report, it says that the current use of the property is hotel motel, but there are other uses on that property currently.
Yep.
Okay. From your conversation, I've heard you say that you will be only putting in about, give or take, 12 affordables. So obviously, you're taking one or two of the hotel units and making two into one or something similar.
That's correct. Because they're going to be more than one bedroom typically. They're 2 bedrooms, and then you got a kitchen. So let's say you've got a hotel room that's 200 square
I
feet.
am perfectly aware.
Yeah. You can't, like when we've already got the
know this
plans that we've provided to the village that basically shows the design of the different
Yeah,
types
you
of
can,
units.
you can visually, to make it understandable to people, you probably are doing more, is if you have 2 motel rooms, they have a bedroom, 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. When you convert it, you have 1 bathroom and 1 kitchen, and you have 1 bedroom and 1 living room, and you cut the door in between, and you seal the outside door.
Yep.
That's very simple.
And you can get it done.
Not so simple to actually get done, but that's the simple version of it.
Yeah, and then you can get it done, and you can get people in there that can then work and do work at the other property, and so.
So you don't, out of 50 units, you don't think you can get more than 12?
The maximum you can do is 18, a little under 18 because of density. I think it's like 17. But based on the designs we had, and there's turns.
Oh.
And like, it's not just a straight like this. So you got to
Oh,
turn
so
this
you
way, you got to
can't-
turn this way, where there's dead spaces, there's stairwells. So logistically, how to even get it where they were livable, that it was in that neighborhood. Yeah.
It's
Yep.
not a vote for tonight.
Although
It's a curiosity question,
Yep.
sorry.
Anthony Bourdain actually addressed that. If you are not familiar, there was a program on the Travel Channel that Anthony Bourdain did, and he took on old hotels around the world and converted them. This is one of the properties that he did. It was actually a program featured on Anthony Bourdain's, I can't remember what.
Parts Unknown?
Parts Unknown or something like that. But he did the conversion on that hotel, brought it into this century. In fact, he brought it out of probably the 1800s.
Did the conversion on Creekside?
But they did, yeah, it could have been. But they did, there was a discussion briefly about him, what he would do if he had made it into the apartments, because he talked about how he would do this, convert that. And this is before they'd torn the other building down. And he did get 18 units, but he said efficiencies are always good to have. Somebody's always going to want to stay privately. And he did get, I think, 17 or 18 units that were nice sized.
Yeah, Pritam, when we were doing Isla Bella, we had the Blue Marlin Hotel was 12 units, and we turned it into like 8. But it was efficiencies in 1 bedrooms.
Which is what you need.
The village center doesn't allow this conversion. So now we're saying we're going to allow it just because we changed it. I mean, why don't we allow that conversion? I mean,
Because the code doesn't allow it.
so now we're going to change the zoning so we allow the conversion?
Going to change
So
the
it's-
zoning, and
it's-
the village council is going to decide whether to allow the conversion and issue the affordable housing permits. Right now, what's in front of us is whether to allow the Flume Amendment change and the zoning map change to facilitate the council's later decisions.
No flume.
Oh, Flume Amendment, sorry. Habit, they're always two, they're always companion.
that's why this-
Habit,
this is
the zoning.
So this is just quasi judicial, because it's a single parcel, and it's just a land use district map amendment. And because of the consistency with the flume,
It's just zoning, yeah, sorry, it was just a misstatement.
What I'm looking at for the zoning change isn't, to me, not that crazy, but based off of what I'm hearing, it's because we're going to allow the conversion that we don't allow somewhere else. I think that, to me, is a little, now I'm thinking.
So there's a story to the story.
I don't know that story. So what I'm saying is in front of me, hey, look.
There is a story to
Village
the
Center.
story. So
I don't have the footnotes. You guys left the footnotes off of my paper, okay?
it's called 50 years from now. You'll know those footnotes.
That's the issue.
Sorry.
No, I agree.
Right?
I agree with you guys. I agree with you guys. But
So if you,
yeah, 50 years.
okay, all right, good. You'll get it. It's okay, I know. So the part of the footnote to the footnote is that if you look at it, they're not, technically they're converting them, but they're not. They're transferring them. Okay? They're not converting it technically. Code-wise, they are, but technically, they're not converting. They don't plan on just eliminating those hotel rooms. They're going to move them. They're going to keep those hotel rooms, just reload. Well, this is why I'm trying to explain how this came about, is that I thought it was in more districts than it was in, to be honest. It came about because many years ago now, there was a decision made that we needed to keep the business that we're in, which is tourism, in tourism and not allow, because there was a lot of that going on, especially with smaller hotels.
Think Windley Key, Angler's Reef.
Yes. Well, and what was the one across from Robbie's? Dell?
Tarpons.
Yeah, on Lower Mat, where now it has Tarpon Point, that one right there.
Tarpon
It was
Point
Sea
was
Star,
another one.
Sea Star
Sea Star was
Hotel
what
or
it was
Motel.
called. So all of those were converting away from a hotel and into residence. Well, that's not an all bad thing, except it was believed that our hotel stock was of minimum need at the time anyway. And to lose more was, so we did the code to restrict them from being transferred into residences. That's how it got there. But if you look at this, because I don't see this as transferring a hotel into a residence. Converting a hotel into residence. I see it as they're transferring the hotel. Now they have a building and they want to do affordable. Or there's 3 things that you can do. You can do affordable, you can do market, and you can do multifamily.
we know 2 of those right now really aren't a viable option for anyone.
Right, so.
And my clients are in the hotel business, owning the Islander, which is.
Right. So, so he's going to, you either have to change the rule that you can convert it, because or you have to change the zoning district.
But they don't want to convert. They're moving the walls to make an apartment, but they're not wanting to convert the TDRs because they want the TDR hotel rooms because they want them for the Islander.
Right.
So then you're either going to have a building and they have to rehab the building to allow it for a different use, or it will be vacant, and the use that we're being told is going to be a conditional or firm, and of the choices, it sounds pretty firm these days because the other two aren't really viable, are affordable. So they're moving walls around to make apartments, but they're not wanting to convert a hotel TDR into a residential
They
TDR.
want to save, they want that hotel unit.
That is-
They want to move it.
Pretty valuable rights now.
But it was, I was surprised that it wasn't in more zoning districts that you can't convert it. I thought it was in all of them.
Just real quick, what he's describing to me, I guess, it's a redevelopment project. I mean, this isn't a conversion of a one-unit hotel room to, or let's say a two-unit hotel room or two-bedroom hotel room to a one affordable unit. This is a redevelopment. So does that even apply? Like, do we even need to, it sounds like we have to change the zoning if he wants to do affordables at this, in this existing
I
structure.
asked that same question, and it was determined through legal that they needed to change zoning districts.
Back a year ago, I'm guessing.
No,
Right now.
I asked just last week.
Okay.
Or Friday or
I was
whatever.
about to
Love
say,
to
not
have got
right
him
now.
answered
I
and
didn't
good
hear
to
that.
go.
Okay, yeah.
Or no, you don't have to wait 50 years on that one.
Okay. Okay. I understand now. Thank you.
But, well, because you are exactly, right. I asked that question. I said, why do they even have to, he said it at the beginning of his presentation. Why does he even have to change zoning districts? Because he's not converting them.
Yeah.
He's moving them, but he's not converting them. But
Well, isn't
it's
it that
determined-
affordable's not allowed in village activities?
No, it's allowed.
It is allowed, but not if it used to be a hotel.
Right.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Well, the intent.
When you look
it's-
at what was
can't-
going on when the when the
it's
code
not
was
just
being
the ho-
made, it
it's
makes sense.
The affordable requirements changed a lot too. I mean.
Of course.
But it's
and
not
the
just
demand for it.
affordable, that it's
Demand for
restricted. It's restricted for residential and for multifamily too. It was restricted across the board of converting a hotel room.
And that was '04, which, remember, that was the big craze. Buy hotel rooms and turn them into residential units and sell them off for 3 times what they were
Right.
actually worth.
Right,
And then you got 3 mortgages on the property when you bought it. We all know where that went.
right.
You're right. It's for all of them. It's not just the affordable.
It's, yeah.
I see.
Like I said, I thought it was in more zoning districts than it turned out to be, but that's okay. All right.
Can I move to approve, or do we have further discussion?
That's what I was just going to ask.
That's
Do we
okay.
have more discussion? Okay, move to approve.
I move to approve the zoning change amendment.
May I ask if you would consider modifying it to include the recommendation that no permits be issued?
I'm just going to withdraw it then and allow you to make the motion.
Okay. Let me read what he wrote. Let me see that for a minute. Okay. I move to approve the recommendation as presented with the additional recommendation that no permits or other activity occur on the receiver site property until the discussed property here that is currently Creekside Motel et al. Is properly retitled as affordable housing, and that project has begun. I think that's what I wanted, right?
Can I clarify that the receiver site has ongoing activity? I don't, right, like the Islander has,
Oh, it's got permits being pulled over.
yeah, it's like they just filed for another building permit today to do landscaping and stuff, like on the
I'm talking about
existing
the
hotel.
utilization of these.
Okay, I just want clarity on that. I didn't want someone to get mad when they saw them doing work out there.
Yeah, try it.
We're gonna try it. The 50 transient,
lawyers does it take
the
to do this?
50 transient TBR may not pull building permits until building permits for the affordable housing are issued for Creekside.
Yeah, that, okay, yeah, that,
Just issued, is that what you
Issued.
wanted?
So here's what happens, if we get to where they're issued, you have to file the deed restriction right before the permits are issued. So you're locked in. And at that point, you're going on both.
Deed restrictions, the deed restrictions.
Yeah, because before a building permit's issued, the deed restrictions is required.
Last month, didn't we limit a CO until we said something along the lines of we can't get it would be, in this case, the Islander can't get their CO until the affordable CO's been issued, right?
Right.
I mean,
We don't need a CO.
That's the normal.
I'm not saying that, I mean, that's maybe way down the
Essentially,
road,
that's
but we did
essentially-
that.
Well,
That's also.
But we're
you're
locking
just
it-
making recommendations to the council.
Yeah,
They're the ones
okay,
doing
sorry.
all the
I
limiting.
apologize. Here we go
What did
again.
I recommend?
I'm done.
We're being done. I like your thought pattern.
okay.
No, we can.
I think you can just state what the applicant provided as a recommended condition.
I'm good. I think.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
second it.
Okay.
I need a copy of that in order to repeat it to council.
The bottom line is he can't build anything.
No, I understand it. I just got to be able
wanna
to
make sure.
say it.
Well, technically, the way it is no permits will issue until other permits are issued, but the timing of the building will presumably be simultaneous, but there's nothing that would stop them from doing all the units at the Islander without doing their affordable homes, but they couldn't be anything other than affordable homes because the permit issued, and you do have time constraints on when you got to put a shovel in the ground.
And
So-
you got a deed restriction against the property that.
Correct.
As long as you're bringing dirt, bring dirt.
So I did think that it was in the code that when you're required to build affordable, or if you're doing affordable, that has to CO before your other one. That doesn't mean you can't work on them simultaneous. You just can't do the CO.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
agree.
and there is an inclusionary housing.
I don't know if
Already
that's in the
exists.
code.
That building's already built.
I don't think.
Yeah, these buildings
Yeah,
are
but
already
they're going to
built.
have to convert it, a big conversion, so. All right, anyway, we got a motion. And you second?
I seconded it.
Right.
Okay.
You seconded.
Cheryl Culberson,
Yes.
Susan Raffanella,
Yes.
Patrick Foley,
Yes.
Tony Hammond,
Yes.
Jim Prine,
Yes.
Lori Lalonde,
Yes.
and Deb Gillis.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Chair and local planning agency members, anybody got anything? Future agenda items, anybody got anything? Planning director, village manager.
The only thing to note is that there will be no July meeting. I'll be on vacation during when your July meeting would be, so I've pushed, there is actually nothing in yet, but I've told everybody that we wouldn't be having one. So your next meeting will be August 12th, for your knowledge. And then in case, I think it was Lori, Cheryl, and Jim were appointed to the extended terms at the last meeting, in case you didn't see that.
But that's a vote tomorrow night.
Oh, is that tomorrow night? I'm sorry. I thought it was the last meeting.
No.
It's all, so it's tomorrow night. You're being voted to the extended term. Sorry.
And the rest of us, our terms will expire in 1 year. They get an extra year. Village attorney.
I have no report. I only wanted to say thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure dealing with all of you today.
Don't say so much next time.
Yeah, really. I need a motion.
Adjourn.
Yes?
Second.
Everybody vote by leaving?
Yes.